guys, and welcome to the Photographer Society questions and answers. Now, question for this week is how to effectively prepare your client before every session. Now, the first main point to consider is when you want to prepare your client after they've decided to book is to ask them so many questions as much as you can to get that information and to understand what their needs are. Because many photographers fall into the trap of booking a client in, taking their deposit, and then the client coming in and the photographer would have set up and then the client dislikes what the photographer has set up or has prepared for that session. So the first thing you must do is ask questions. So what I do is after a client books in, I send them a list with questions about simple things like what colors they like, what they don't like, which is the main important thing I like to concentrate on because I try and avoid what they don't like and I try not to put it into the session. So, and also what they plan to do with the images. Do they plan to hang them? Do they want to give them as gifts and things like that? Also, anything that they have concerns. So I ask as well, do you have any concerns? If they have any sentimental products. A lot of parents like to bring in gifts they've received for their newborn, like blankets and things like that. I also mention that so they can bring it in. So that's the most important step I take because I like to understand what the client has in mind and what they want to achieve, and then I work from there and I set up the session based on that. Now, number 2 is I always like to ask what the client wants to achieve from their session. So how they envision their images to look like, because so many clients I find, even though they've seen your work, they always come in, they expect something in there they've got envisioned in their head, and they automatically assume that you will achieve that. So I always, even though they're like being fans or on my Facebook page or they've seen my work, I always like to point out and ask them, what is it you want to achieve in your session? What poses you like, what you don't like, what you want more of maybe. I even like to ask them, have a look through my website and my social media and have a look at images or poses or something that really catches your eye and to show me. So I suggest that's a really good point because that way because I get a lot of parents. I love using bonnets for instance, and I get a lot of parents that don't like using hats or bonnets on their children or headbands for the little girls. So I always like to ask if you've seen any image, even though it's not my image, just show me, because I like to get an idea of what they sort of expect for the images to look like, because in the end you want to please them because it's their images in the end. And I know every photographer has a style or likes to use certain products or props, but not every client likes that. So it's very, very important, and I've fallen into this trap so many times that I love to always say to every photographer that you ask that question. You ask to see images, get them to look through your social media or your website, or if they see anything on Google or whatever, just to show you and send you before your session so you get an idea as well as to what you're aiming for during the session. That way your session runs quicker and more smoother. So that's another point to think about. So step number 3 is to send them something you can call a welcome pack or information pack. I send my clients that it's filled with loads of information about what to expect during the session, what to bring to the session, and what happens after the session. So when you send them it should detail in step by step or in points of what happens now that they've paid their deposit. So maybe you want to say they should arrive early, or allow time if it's a newborn session. Mention a specific time that you normally take. Also, I like to mention to bring some water or some snacks, because obviously I won't have time to offer them anything. So I like to mention that. And if they've got siblings as well, for a newborn session, to bring, their favorite toys so they have something to get them occupied with. So those little fine details really helps the client to prepare, because people are just come and they don't expect to sit that long, or, for the session to take that long. So they're, helping them, give them ideas helps them prepare for their session. I also mention what happens during the session. So I mentioned that I'm going to take over the newborn and I'm going to settle, pose while they sit and relax. And I sort of make it as a session where they can lay back and watch me, photograph their baby. So I do that. And also, what happens after they leave their session. So I say allow, a few weeks until your online gallery is up, or if you do in-person sales, to do that as well. And then, every step-by-step details throughout the whole process up until they receive their products. Whether you deliver them, you might want to mention that, or, the time frame it takes to order it, or when they should come and pick it up. So as much as details you can get into that welcome pack is really, really important, because it saves you time explaining or misunderstanding between you and your client, and it helps them, know what to expect, know what to do as well. And they will appreciate you for it, I guarantee it. So that's the third step I really, really think that every photographer should have and should do and should use in their business. So you might even want to add the contract into that, or the invoice for your deposit if you take one, into that as well. So that's the thing to consider, and I really recommend you do it. So the fourth most important thing I like to do is always update your client. So even though you've given them this welcome pack with loads of information of what happens before, during, and after every session, a client tends to always sit and, sitting and waiting patiently for their images is a bit hard to them. So I always like to, after a session, after a day maybe, I will email them and say, thank you so much for the session the other day. It was lovely to meet you. Please, we are working to get up to your gallery for it to be edited, etc., etc. And just we will continually update you throughout the progress. So that way, if you write that email, they will understand that they will constantly get updates and that you haven't forgotten them, done your session, and that's it, they're forgotten. So, because they tend to feel that way, because a client doesn't understand that you have other sessions and, other clients that you're looking after as well. So that's really important. After that email, I tend to, depending how much galleries I have to edit, I tend to send another email maybe 2 weeks later or a week later, depending, like I said, how much galleries I have to edit. And I'll update them and I'll tell them where they sit in line, and how long it's got to go. And I'll just assure them that I'm still, I still know that they're waiting, and I understand that and I appreciate that. And trust me, when you do that, they end up appreciating it as well. And then when I do start working on their gallery, I will send a third email and I'll tell them, I'll sound excited and I'll say, yes, I'm working on your gallery now. It's not long to go before your online gallery is all set up for you to view. Just be patient with me, or just hold in there, and once it's done, you will get a link with your online gallery to access. So that way they know from the beginning to expect constant emails, and to update them, and so they don't feel alone, because automatically, like I said, clients think that they're the only ones that you've done a session for, and then they start to think, why is it going to take that long? So, if you're a photographer like me, I have like 10 galleries to edit. Every gallery takes me about a week to, finalize. So I always like to do that, and just so I don't make my client feel like, they're just, sitting in the dark, and, so in that way they do appreciate it, and they'll value you for it as well. So that's the fourth most important step to take to effectively, deal with your clients, and to, minus out all the stress they might be under, and your stress most importantly as well, because you run a business. And another way you can do this, if you don't have the time to always email them always set up an automated email, and set it to start after your session, and it will go out automatically. That's what I personally do, and it works awesome. You know, and if it does and they finished it before, that's totally fine. They'll understand that. So that's 4 tips for you to effectively, work with your clients, and I hope this really helps. That was our questions and answers video for this week, and I look forward to more questions from you guys for the following week. So if you have anything you want me to answer, or to give you tips or advice or inspiration on, please email me at Rochelle@thephotographersociety.com, and keep your eyes peeled for the email for our memberships only area, which will launch soon, where you'll get tons and loads of inspiration and help and documentation and videos and how to do's, and taking you step by step for every photographer, and to build a better business, because that's what we're all about here at the Photographer Society. So from me to you, take care, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week with another question and answers video from the Photographer Society. See you then.